Good evening, Wakefield, and welcome to the school committee meeting on this Tuesday, January 12th, 2021. We just finished up an executive session, as noted on the agenda, and I'd also like to note that a small group of us are in studio social distancing, and that this meeting is being broadcast live on WCAT's Facebook page. I'd like to start the meeting off with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Next on the agenda is the public comment. If anyone from the public would like to participate, I just ask that you identify yourself with your name and address. I'm seeing none on this Zoom call, but I will just ask again if anyone from the public would like to participate, that you just identify yourself with your name and address, please. So I am not seeing any, so I will move on with the agenda. We have, next is the student advisory. And I see here on the Zoom, do we have two student advisors joining us this evening? Sophia and Samantha. Do we have Logan and Maggie tonight, or?
No, they'll actually be coming to the next meeting, so it's just Sophia and I tonight.
Okay, great. Well, welcome. I feel like it's been about a month since we had you join our last meeting, so I guess I'd just like to start off by asking how you guys are doing. You know, in the midst of this pandemic and these unprecedented times, I think it's important to start off by asking if you guys are well.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. I don't know about Sophia, but yeah, taking things day by day.
Good. How are you doing, Sophia?
I'm doing pretty good, too.
Good, I'm glad. So Happy New Year, and do you guys have any updates for the high school?
Yes, so we do have a few different like academic, athletic, and other school updates. So I can start with like the academics. So there's term 2, semester 1, for the high school ends on the 29th of January. So we have maybe like 2.5, weeks left. And those grades are going to be posted on iPass on Tuesday, February 9th. Also this year, this is probably one of our most important updates. There are no mid-years, so mid-year assessments are, off for this year, and I think we're just going to be taking, that week where we would normally, have those assessments, to continue our, normal learning. With the athletics, teams started practicing December 14th. So far we have boys and girls basketball, hockey, and then gymnastics. I don't think indoor track and field, is running at the moment. Not because of, anything, at the school, but I think the facility that would normally hold the meets isn't, doing that right now. So I think that's still being worked out, but I'll let Sophia take it from here.
So the sports that are happening for the winter season are now in their 3rd week for games. And during all the COVID precautions this year, like there have been a few points where some students had to quarantine from being exposed to other teams that they played, and then just for some other news, Mrs. Traficante is working out a date and time for students to make up picture day in March at some point. And then also the Warrior store is open, and I don't know if you know where it's located in the school, but it's right near the calf. and anyone can go in there. I have a Facebook page, which is just the Warrior Store, and a Twitter account, which is WHS Warrior Store. And you can also order online off of those two social medias. But for April, there is limited hours for the store. I think that's all we have for tonight for some updates.
Thank you, Sophia. Thank you, Samantha. Does any of the members have any questions for either one of them? Nope. Well, thank you so much for joining our meeting this evening. And I would normally, I guess, be saying good luck with midterms, but that won't be happening. So continue doing a great job, and thank you for representing the students of Wakefield. You guys do a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job, girls.
Okay, moving on with the agenda. Do we have a consent agenda, Susie?
Yep, move that the school committee approve the minutes of October 27th, 2020 and November 10th, 2020 school committee meetings, and accept the minutes of the December 2nd, 2020 school committee student services subcommittee meeting, the December 3rd, 2020 school committee finance and facilities subcommittee meeting, and the December 4th, 2020 school committee policy and communications subcommittee meeting as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Ms. Purcell,
Yes.
Ms. Bayer,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Guida,
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau,
Yes.
Dr. Burns,
Yes.
and Mr. Liakos.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on, budget items. Christine?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. So you have the financial report. It's from July 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020 for the first 6 months of the fiscal year. Well, this is the part of the year that we sort of pause and reevaluate the spending and sort of make any assessments about any transfers. What's also happening is we're meeting with principals about the budget, so we're also talking to them about spending in certain line items and making any adjustments that were needed. Also, we're talking about our grants. Spending is on track, very comparable to where we were last year. We were also notified that we received an ESSER 1 grant for COVID-related expenses, and the state told us we're in line to receive an ESSER 2 grant. So we don't have that yet, but we were told it's probably going to be about 3 times the amount of the ESSER 1, which was 102. So we're in line to receive probably about another $350,000. We don't. The good thing about that, though, is we don't have to spend it by the end of this fiscal year. We can carry it to next year. So more to come on that. The revolving accounts are in pretty good shape. We're still watching the Wakefield Academy for the preschool, making sure that we're receiving the tuition payments, and we're waiting for our second circuit breaker payment, which should come sometime in January. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah,
Question,
Mike.
Christine, at what point in time would you likely do transfers?
Not till June.
June?
Not till the
of
end,
the year.
right.
Okay, got it, thank you.
And did you mention the timeline on that money that we?
The ESSER 2?
Yeah.
Probably, we just had a call last Friday about it, so we should know within the next 2 weeks.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Susie, yes.
Christine, did you say what that grant money could be used for, the SR2?
It's pretty open, so anything COVID-related, PPE, cleaning. You don't want to put salaries, you don't want to put anything because it's one-time money again. So I would hesitate putting technology only because we have that remote learning technology grant, but it's basically for COVID-related expenditures.
Great, okay.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Yes, Greg.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. So this may be for Christine or for Doug. the new relief legislation that Congress passed most recently included additional money for schools. Will all of that come through the state and through formula funding, or is there any additional streams that we might apply for, especially the capital needs we have?
So normally with the stimulus money, and the same for the ESSER grant, it's done by the Title I formula. So it's population, subgroups, and things of that nature for Title I. But we don't know yet about the extra stimulus money. Probably they're waiting for the next administration to take over, and maybe a little bit of a gap in time. But we know about the ESSER money because that was part of the first CARES Act money.
Right, yeah, okay, so to be determined this next round.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Can I, just to add there, Greg, in regard to your question about following a formula, it's important to note that 2 years ago, our Title I funding formula had changed because the percentage of economically disadvantaged subgroup had changed for Wakefield. And it was cut, our Title I grant was cut by about 40%.
I remember, yes.
Right, so that the new number or the new formula is a fraction of what it was, right? So we're pleased and we need this money. It's going to be an important part of us closing out the FY21 budget, and so more to follow on that.
Right. I think what's important, like what Doug's saying, depending on when it's released, when we would have to spend it by. So if we're not locked into spending it by this June, if we can carry it for next year. Those are the decisions we'll have to make by the end of the year. But that's about it for the business reports.
Any other questions for Christine about the budget? Business reports? Nope. Okay.
Great. The next for your approval is the payrolls for December.
Do we have a motion for that?
Yep, move that the school committee approve payroll warrants 24 and 26 as presented.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Ms. Vayer?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Ms. Guida?
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau?
Yes.
Dr. Burns?
Yes.
And Mr. Liakos?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the last, we have one gift for $100 from the, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce the company, Looters Environmental, to be used where needed at Wakefield Public Schools.
Is that the?
Make
Yes.
the motion.
Please,
Yep,
yes.
Move that the school committee accept with gratitude the donation of $100 from Looters Environmental, Inc., Lawn Care and Plant Company for the school department to use as it deems appropriate.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? I'm seeing none. Roll call?
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Ms. Vayer?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Ms. Guida?
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau?
Yes.
Dr. Burns?
Yes.
Mr. Liakos?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Christine. Moving on with the agenda under chair comments and updates. I'm going to pass off my updates to Superintendent Lyons. Although with it being a new year, I thought I'd give a quick recap of last year and also a look at what's ahead. So bear with me. I did prepare a brief comment. 2020 brought new and unprecedented issues before the Wakefield Public Schools. Our students' last day of in-person instruction was March 12th, 2020, as we tackled the COVID-19 global pandemic. Our top priority was the health and well-being of our students and staff, both physically and emotionally. We were met with unprecedented local, state, and DESE restrictions and guidelines that we worked to follow. And like many districts last spring, Wakefield went virtual. The school department and the school committee addressed issues of building safety, transportation, and busing, and began a grab-and-go lunch program for Wakefield families. We worked tirelessly to answer questions about how, when, or if our students would get back to school in September. And if so, what would that look like? We found ourselves using new words a lot, such as Zooms, hybrid, remote. To say that 2020 was unprecedented would be a tremendous understatement. Moving on to 2021, combating COVID-19 and ensuring the safety of our students and faculty will remain the school committee's top constant priority. This is not an easy task. The meetings can be very long and difficult decisions must be made. I remain committed to addressing those vitally important issues moving forward. In addition, 2021 likely will bring other issues before the school committee as well. We recently kicked off the budget planning with questions about federal and state aid looming. The school committee will be working closely with the administration to build a safe, equitable, and strong budget that addresses the most pressing needs of Wakefield students. Additionally, we will continue to monitor the new high school MSBA project and plan for Wakefield's future for a day, hopefully soon, in a post-COVID world. Thank you. So with that, I'll pass it off to Superintendent Lyons.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. It seems like it's been a while since we've been together, and a lot has transpired since then, right? We've had the winter break. We've returned from winter break. We've made it through, right? And we're back at it, and we're still in our hybrid schedule, which is terrific. I would be remiss if I didn't mention COVID, right? COVID continues to be part of our kind of daily planning. And so this evening, we sent out a letter to the community updating everyone to let you all know where we are with our number of positive cases in Wakefield. And so in the letter that I sent this evening, it listed 22 new cases since our update on Friday morning. We do a standing call with WCAT and town leaders, including Steve Mayo, and members of the Board of Health, including Ruth Clay and Tom Walsh. And so since our update on Friday morning, we have 22 new cases. That's 18 student cases and 4 staff cases. The total number of cases of positive students that have been positive and students that have recovered are 157 and 36. That's since September. Right now, currently in quarantine, we have 224 students and 12 staff members. Our quarantine numbers have made quite a jump. Fortunately for us, the way that our school nurses are supporting the Board of Health, they're also keeping very close track of the reasons why students are quarantining. And so we have broken out the data, or the information that's provided for us is disaggregated to include the reasons why students are in quarantine. And of the 224, just about half of the students are in quarantine because they're directed by the Board of Health. And that's important to note, because there are other reasons why students are choosing to quarantine, and there are other reasons why they may have to quarantine, right? So some parents are choosing to quarantine their children as a precautionary measure. Some parents have traveled, and because they have traveled, they're following the state guidance, and they are quarantining until they're tested. Other parents are choosing or are keeping their children home because they're symptomatic, or because they might have had a close contact, or they're awaiting a positive test themselves and they believe that someone in their home may be a close contact. And this is an important kind of distinction to make, because really what it shows us is it provides data, evidence that our community members, our families, and our parents continue to follow the CDC guidance and the state guidelines to really keep themselves safe, but also to keep us all safe as well. So we're grateful that they are doing that. For the last few weeks on Sunday mornings, we've been testing faculty and staff. So 2 weeks ago we started, and on January 3rd, before we returned to school, we tested about 115 faculty members, which resulted in 4 positive cases, which was terrific to be able to let people know so that they didn't prematurely return to school. We tested again on the 10th. We tested 118 faculty and staff, which again resulted in 4 positive cases, which is great. We're grateful and appreciative of the leadership of Steve Mayo, Ruth Clay, and Tom Walsh in their support in helping us set up and secure testing for our faculty and staff. So we're also working on learning kind of about new initiatives that are happening at the state level. We were notified late last week about pool testing, which is a way to do surveillance testing for larger numbers of students and faculty. And so we're working through that, and we'll learn more this coming week. And we'll work with our nurses and our Board of Health to determine if this is a direction that will help us here in Wakefield. I think at this point we have a lot of questions about it. We are also curious how that will intersect with the vaccination timelines that are being forwarded by the state. And so that's just quick from me in regard to comments and updates. I would like to turn it over to Glavia Smith to give an update of how the METCO program is doing.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
So I just want to give a quick update. Since the year's opened, all of our METCO kids do have devices, and we have plenty in stock in case students' devices stop working. We've replaced a couple so far due to sound issues or just logging on issues. So this year we have about 64 students in the program starting for the year. We have about 43 students in total that decided to participate in the hybrid program, and about 21 who are remote. We have about 17 high school students that are hybrid, and about 8 that are remote, 16 middle school students that are hybrid, and let me see, middle school, and then about 5 of them that are remote. So for the most part, they are doing pretty well. I did a half-year check-in with the parents that have the remote students, and it seems like for the most part, the remote students are doing well. Sometimes there's some technology issues, so that's being worked out. We're also working with the district around providing hotspot for some of the students that are having connectivity issues. So those students that are identified either by myself with speaking to parents, or also speaking to administration staff within either levels of the schools, we've been able to put them on a list and give them the hotspot as needed so that they are able to connect. Either they are hybrid students or remote students, because sometimes the Wednesday remote students are the one that needs the help. Galvin has been exceptionally great with the middle school kids. Halfway through, maybe like by October, we realized some of the students were not really doing well, only remote or only on their hybrid days. So Galvin was able to have a learning space where we offered those students the opportunity to come in the 4 days, which means we just add on 2 additional days in a district for them that is not part of their hybrid cluster. So then that way they have the extra support, they have the space, the quiet, they're able to focus and have the structure of the day, of the school day, and the support of staff to do work. So we have about 3 students that's participating in that at the middle school, and it seems to be working really well. And they're responding really well academically and socially to it. So we're still working with some of the students that are struggling socially in regards to some of the isolation that COVID is causing. And a lot of it's really them not being used to having people over, not being around anyone during the school day, just having the computer. So we're still working with that. We're referring them to services both in the high school and also within the Galvin Middle School. Some of them are able to connect. Some of them are having a little bit harder time to connect, but for the most part, they're doing their best. Parents are happy with the communication from the school in regards to COVID updates, and also in regards to just hybrid and learning issues. So I haven't received any really hard issues that we're not able to work through with parents in regards to their students learning or getting technology, or also switching over from hybrid to remote if necessary. I'll take any questions. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one. Today we started, today our very first staff, we have our second staff that's joined the MECO family, the Wakefield Public School. We have a joint Clasher who has been hired as the academic coordinator for the Galvin Middle School. Today's his first day. So I did bring him over there to meet the administration staff. So their staff is very excited, which is a great addition for the middle school. So Mr. Clasher will be able to be at the middle school on a full-time basis. He will be the designated point person to work with the kids around their academics, their social needs, and also the emotional needs that they may be in need of. Also to serve as a springboard in a middle piece for parents and also administration staff in trying to stay connected to the parents within the program. And we've also been working on moving on a new initiative that we've started, which is the Wakefield Boston Family Partnership Program. And I believe some of the board members I see on the screen are part of it, or participants in tonight's meeting are part of that group. So we've been working on that. We have a core group of Wakefield parents that community members that are involved in that. And the hope is through that program, we'll be able to partner up MECO students with Wakefield families as host parents or host sponsors, but also find other ways to support them in any ways that they may need, and also to build a bridge and connection between Wakefield community and the Boston community. So that's still in the works, but those are some of the things we're working on in regards to the program. I'll take any questions.
Any question, Amy?
Yeah, Mike.
Hi, Gladys. It's Mike Boudreau. Nice to meet you. And thanks for the presentation. You mentioned it a little bit, but has the trend been for more of the kids to go remote than hybrid for the spring semester, as I'll call it, or the other way around?
For the most part, most of them have stayed where they're at. At the high school, I've had 3 students transfer over to remote. And then at the middle school, I just had 1 student transfer over from remote to hybrid. So for the most part, the trend is the same. So we haven't seen a big change or jump for the kids.
Great, thank you.
Susie.
Glavia, thanks so much for the update. Just had a quick question. You ran through the numbers for the Galvin and the high school of what the split is for hybrid and remote. Do you have those numbers for elementary?
I do. I'm sorry about that. For elementary, we have about 10 of our little ones from grade K to 4 that are coming in on 4 days a week. And we have about 8 of our students in that grade level that are remote students.
Okay, great. It's great to get the update, and great to hear that you got your the person to help at the Galvin to focus on academics and support. That's going to be great.
Yes, Colleen.
Thank you, Glavia. I don't know if this is just a question for you, but maybe for the district as well, in terms of handling, our COVID, either positive students or quarantine students. I would imagine that, Doug, the numbers that you present include our Boston students as well. Is that true?
That is true.
Okay, and so Glavia, they maintain, even though they may have different protocol, in their residing city. Do they follow the same protocol as we're following as a district? And do you see any issues there, I guess, is the larger question.
So DESE was very clear on the transportation guidelines around how many students can be on a bus. So luckily, we did not have to run any additional bus for the high school. We were actually right under the number for how many students on the bus. So each student on the high school bus have their own seat. They are to wear their mask at all times on the bus, and then the bus windows, all of them are cracked open. So I did do it. I check in pretty regular with the bus driver. They're actually pretty good, to my surprise. And we have not had any issues of anyone not wearing their mask or not following the rules on the bus. And it's the same protocol for the middle school and the elementary kids. That bus has a monitor on it. Their windows are also open, and the kids are also wearing their masks. And that one worked out pretty well because we have the elementary kids coming 4 days a week, but Galvin only have certain kids coming. On certain days, we're able to kind of rotate, and each student was able to get, because the numbers were still low, we were able to assign each student their own seat. So this is their designated seat for the year. And they're the only student that really sit in it unless they're not in. And then we have a student at the high school who needs to stay after. And then we'll pick them up in the afternoon. But both buses have seat assignments for the students for them to sit in their designated seats.
Great, thank you. Amy, I have another question if that's okay.
Sure.
My second question was just, this might have come up sort of on a different topic, but just are there any families that you haven't been able to maintain contact with through this, through the pandemic, and are all students sort of accounted for in that way?
I would have to say I've been able to talk to every parent in the program in some sort of way. There are maybe one or two parents that I think they just decide they prefer to just deal with the school. They're not really reaching out to me when I reach out to them, which is fine, but as long as they're reaching out to administration staff in regards to the needs of the kids, and staff are responding appropriately to them, and we're still talking offline about the families, but they're checking in. But for the most part, the parents, I'm able to check in and reach, I would say 100, most of the kids, at least 99.9% of them. And I think the ones that come in at the high school, for the most part, they're very happy to be in district on those days. And I'm at the high school those 2 days they're in, so I can do face-to-face with them and check in with them. They do participate in PM learning blocks at the high school. So when they do, we've gotten to a system where they would text me and let me know if they need to stay, what day they need to stay. So then I would then coordinate with the bus monitor to secure a seat for them on the bus on the way back to Boston on the 2:30 bus that's going back with the kids. So for the most part, they're plugging along, they're moving along. They're liking the hybrid model. They're liking going home at 12. So I have to remind them, don't get used to it, because you're going back to a full schedule soon. I tell them, that's great, but don't remember, school is technically till 2:30, so don't get too excited now. So, but for the most part, they're liking it, and they like the check-in, and they all seem to be doing, even the little ones, to my surprise, are doing the math, they're playing outside, and they like coming in.
Great, that's good to hear. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, really great. Yes, Tom.
Thank you. So I thank you very much again for coming and for making the time to make a report tonight. It's always awesome to hear from you, to see how our students from Boston are doing. So thanks for the updates. Also, I'm really glad to hear that you're able to get the additional position and get that person lined up and hired in the middle of all the commotion and hiring complications of the last several months. It's really great that that position's in place. So congratulations on that. Question on the family partnership program. I'm really pleased that is, I guess it's back, because I remember it was around many years ago. So a question on that is are you trying to recruit families? Is there any way that you're trying to do outreach, or are you in good stead? How does a Wakefield family that may be interested in supporting their children's friends from Boston, is there a way for that, or how are those families being reached out to?
So I am participating in the school PTO meetings and presenting it, and then I'll provide my information. So anyone, people will refer families. So we're always taking families in the community So I do have a demographics form I do provide to Wakefield families to fill out, so I can add them into the mailing, the email group that I created for that. So any family is welcome to join, and if anyone is interested, typically people would email me and I'll answer their email, or I'll schedule a phone conversation with them to give them more information. I add them to the email list, and then I start including in all correspondence in regards to it. So we're very much in the infancy stage, I should say. Greg is also on there. So we're very much in the infancy stage of it, but we have enough interest. I think just about right before I went on vacation, I think just about every week or every 2 weeks, I do have someone express interest, and I'm sending out the paperwork to them. So it's a matter of just kind of meeting and then setting up a monthly meeting check-in. So for the most part, any and all is welcome. Whether you have students we do have a couple of families that don't have any students at the school at all, but they just want to be involved and help out, and we welcome that also. So anyone on who's interested, you can email me on glavia.smith@wpsk212.org, and we can facilitate the conversation.
Great, thank you. I remember many years ago when my children were students at Greenwood Elementary School. We were such a family, and it was a really good time, really good relationship, and way to get to know some of the other kids. So
right, and we're hoping through that we'll match kids with families, but we're also hoping to create a community of two worlds into one, where the end goal is really for the enrichment and the fostering of relationships within the two communities. One, for Wakefield families to feel comfortable to send their kids to Boston also, because Boston families are very comfortable sending their kids to Wakefield. So just to kind of help with that, COVID has gone in the way, but in the same time, I think COVID has really helped to kind of slow things down a little bit, so that some of those pieces can happen. So there's some good pieces and bad pieces of COVID. So COVID has really helped to kind of help and pause and facilitate that and give us some time to build. And that way, once we come out of this COVID world, we'll be able to do a little bit more activities as a group together. That's our hope.
Well, that is so wonderful to hear, Glavia. I'm really glad that the family partnership is taking on legs again, and that's really great to hear. So thank you for the extra energy that I know it takes to pull something like that together. But I think it's an important part of our partnership between Wakefield and Boston in the first place, and that's a great important thing. So thanks. One thing I could just mention, just for the sake of conversation, I bet it's a point of real celebration around Medco, I would imagine, even though Wakefield had nothing to do with it. Our friends in Reading can certainly celebrate as well. That Kim Janey, right, the president of the Boston City Council, is a Medco kid, poised to be the first African American woman to be mayor of Boston. So I bet there's some real pride around the Medco tables these days, right?
It is a lot of buzz, and I have to say, sometimes I like to say she's the district attorney, I think, in Maryland. Her name is Marilyn. Oh, I forgot her name. I forgot her last name. She's also Medco alum, and she went to Dover Sherburne. So I went to school with her. So there's some good things that come out of Medco. It's, most parents, it's a sacrifice, but it's worth the sacrifice for all the work and time you put in. Even myself being a Medco alum, it's a true sacrifice on both part of the students and families. But in the end, it really gives out some positive outcomes for kids, and it also enriches your experience as you get into the adult world. So
no, that's wonderful, and I'm sure having the next mayor of Boston being a Medco alum is a point of real pride and enthusiasm. You have a important ear, right, and a voice in City Hall.
Right.
So that's very cool. So
right. Thank you.
Thanks, Glavia.
Thank you, Tom. Any other questions for Glavia? No. Well, thank you so much for joining our meeting. As always, your information is always so informative, and I'm just so glad that the METCO program, even during a global pandemic, is still pulling through and is very successful. So thank you for all your hard work in ensuring that.
Thank you. And I definitely want to say thank you to both Doug and Kara for really supporting me as I did my 1 year in Wakefield, and thanking Wakefield community for being welcoming to me and also making me feel part of the family. So thank you to Doug and Kara for supporting me and also helping me through this process, and also kind of cheering me on to hire this new person onto the team. So that way, so I just want to say thank you to everybody.
Thank you so much.
Glavia, you're certainly welcome. Certainly welcome. I think you've been such an amazing addition to our district leadership team. And just I will let the committee know that we will welcome back Dwayne. We're going to let him get settled. We'll probably have him back in February so that he can meet the committee and hear from him in regard to what his impressions are as he transitions to Wakefield. So we're very excited. And just an important piece of information, and Glavia wouldn't add this, of course, but this position has been in the works for about a year. So Glavia has created, worked with Christine Bufagna on funding through the METCO grant, worked on the job description for this, worked with the middle school administration on really doing a needs assessment and really understanding how best to kind of use the money to kind of get the biggest bang for the buck, right? And so, and the candidate who we hired interviewed with us a while ago, and we thought was just really exceptional, and we were able to kind of have him come back, and just really a great hire. So Glavia, nice job with that, and really well done. And I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised as they learn more about that. So I would
Thank you so much.
I would like, with permission from the chair, I would like to take the agenda out of order, and I would love to just move up our counseling update with Andrew Cedrone and Suzanne Burns, just to talk a little bit about, counseling services and their work and things that they're doing at the middle and high school. Is that okay?
Sure, of course.
So I'd like to, at this point, to turn it over to Suzanne and Andrew.
Good evening.
Excellent.
Good evening, everyone.
How are you? Suzanne, you mind, would you like to go first? You want me to hop in?
Sure, I'll jump in.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for inviting us to join you tonight. I'm Suzanne Burns, and I'm our school adjustment counselor at the high school. I was a guidance counselor for 15 years at the high school prior to transitioning to this position last year. And I am still a member of the guidance department. I work closely with our guidance counselors and our school psychologists. And what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we're offering at the high school. And the school psychologists and I are running several groups this year. We're meeting once a week with students on Zoom, and we're offering groups in the fall. Our winter groups are starting in a couple of weeks, and then we'll offer groups in the spring. Mr. Victor Branco, school psychologist, is offering a stress management group, and he also runs a lunch group every week. Miss Rebecca Gordon, school psychologist, is running an anxiety and coping skills group, and I am running a college and career readiness group for seniors, a healthy habits to thrive group for all ages, and a healthy alternatives to substance use group. And we are open to other suggestions as needs arise during the school year. And we are also, this year at the high school, we have offered a new program. It's called an advisory program. And so the 2 days that the schools are in school, they receive social emotional support from their first block teacher. And the teachers will do a check-in with them, maybe lead them or facilitate a conversation, or lead them in some type of an activity. And the school guidance counselors, adjustment counselor, and myself, and the school psychologist are available to support our teachers with these activities. And this year, I've been able to meet with several advisory groups. At the beginning of the year, I met with several freshman classes, and we focused on the importance of practicing self-care and reaching out to adults during their transition from middle school to high school. And then most recently, I led a mindfulness practice with seniors who were expressing a lot of stress to their English teacher about the college application process. So that's been really exciting. And I was planning on doing some type of activities for mid-year week, but luckily the students don't have to take mid-year exams this year. But some type of activities with students regarding relaxation techniques and things like that to help them manage their stress, that I'll be going into homerooms and helping with that as well. And I'll turn it over to Andrew, if he's ready. Yes.
All right, excellent. I was just muting my phone as it was going off.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Suzanne. So yeah, I'll give you a brief update of how things are going over at Galvin. As you may know, I'm one of the school adjustment counselors over at Galvin, and things are going as good as they can be, considering everything that's going on. I really can't say enough how proud I am of our staff, the flexibility and dedication that they've shown, as well as the students for that matter. It's really been incredible. Our student support services team consists of 3 counselors and 2 school psychologists. This year, we've been really lucky to have 1 full-time counseling intern, as well as a half-time school psychology intern. Been very helpful. It's really a lifesaver really this year. A kind of future goal of mine is to kind of continue to develop more of a formal intern program, on the student support services team at Galvin. Because I think we can never have enough trusted adults that are trained in social, emotional, and mental health support. It's been great, especially this year. So one of our biggest team's concerns entering this school year was access to students and relationship development. These are kind of 2 keys to our work that we anticipated were going to be challenging under the hybrid model. So actually, it was fantastic. The Galvin Middle School administration pitched an idea of creating and hosting what they called an I Care class. So I Care, as you may know, is an acronym for Galvin's core values. It's kind of the system that we use throughout with all of our students. And basically, we purchased an evidence-based social-emotional curriculum through Second Step for middle school students to kind of help organize and provide material and curriculum for the student support staff. But we supplement with our own lessons and things like that, whatever's topical. But basically, running these classes really would help spread out the kids on teams, for social distancing. But just as importantly, it really increased access points and FaceTime with these students, for our student support staff members, which would have been challenging otherwise. So it's been great. Right now, they're being taught by our student support services team, our interns, as well as our administrators. So Adam Colantoni teaches a class, a couple cohorts. So does Andy Tetrall, Allison Hammer. It's great. We're on kind of a 6-week rotating cycle, as if we were a specialist on the team, as if we were an art teacher or music teacher. It's been great. Very successful model, I feel. We've really been able to develop relationships with kids that we probably wouldn't have had a chance to this year. In addition, it's really set the stage for that, SEL support and relationship building. I mean, I've had a handful of students reach out to me to check in, due to increased stress from the pandemic or things like that, but only after they had me as their I Care teacher for 6 weeks. And they felt comfortable reaching out to me because they knew me. That's especially important because, for example, I was with the 8th grade last year, so all my 8th graders and my 8th grade relationships graduated up to the high school. So I'm developing all new relationships in the 7th grade this year. So this was just a huge bonus for me to get to meet kids, so it was fantastic. In addition to these groups, we're still running small groups over Zoom and one-on-ones, at all different times of the week to further support kids in small, small groups that are a little more targeted towards, different challenges. But we do feel that obviously, as you would understand, as you would assume, the kind of social emotional support and mental health needs are high right now due to the kind of increased isolation and the stress of the pandemic. As well as our country's, kind of current political climate. It feels that a lot of times we've been pivoting to support families a lot more. As I think that a lot of times the families are actually seeing more of the social, emotional, and mental health challenges and experiencing a lot of more of the struggles that we a lot of times typically see at school. So we've been having to help support families a lot, especially on those remote days. Kind of organizing with their schedule, increased motivation, mood regulation, managing screen time, video games, a healthy sleep schedule. That's, been tough in the middle school, I think, for everyone. As Glavia mentioned, administration was great. We started around October to offer supports for kids who are really experiencing significant struggles on the remote days, and offering, some more support, potentially a third or a fourth day in the building to help get work done. But overall, it's been going great. We kind of get a little bit of a new goal that we've been talking about, kind of to increase connectedness. It's one of the challenges we've seen, probably not only for students, but staff as well, to kind of feel connected to the building when you're only in the building, part-time, and a lot of it's over Zoom. So we're working on creating a lot more virtual and remote after-school clubs or groups or social groups and things like that. So we actually just got done surveying all the students to see what they'd be interested in. We're going to start rolling those out pretty soon, so that's pretty cool. And before I just wrap up that update, I just want to put a quick plug in for our first virtual community mental health forum, something we've done for a handful of years now. Unfortunately, last spring it was canceled due to COVID. So it's coming up virtually over Zoom on February 11th at 7 p.m. And we were lucky enough to get last year's speaker, who we had to cancel with, who's Dr. Stuart Ablon of Think Kids at Mass General Hospital. I've seen him speak a few times. He's fantastic. And you can register at the student support website, www.wakefieldstudentsupport.com. So it would be awesome. I'd like to try to get as many people to attend as possible. It should be really good.
That's great. Thank you so much for all of that information. Lots of really informative updates that you provided, and clearly you and your teams are doing an unbelievable job acknowledging the climate of our students, especially with their sort of unprecedented schedules, obviously. And so just thank you so much. It really just sounds like the kids are, there's contact time with trusted adults, and I just think that is huge. I just had one question for Suzanne. As the adjustment counselor at the high school, can you maybe provide us with like a day in the life for you? I mean, do you meet one-on-one with students, or like how does your day normally run? Because it sounds like there's a lot going on.
Right. So a typical day does not really exist. That's one of the beauties of being a guidance counselor and an adjustment counselor, because you never really know what's going to happen. But I always leave every day, the day before I leave work, I always leave I have a schedule, so I have an idea of what I'm going to do. And then I always have to make room for some flexibility for surprises. But typically what it looks like for me is during that advisory period, it's a 20-minute period. That is when I usually meet with, one student in that 20-minute period, because they're not missing any class time. Because they're only in school for such a short period of time, we don't want to take kids out of classes during, at the high school. So we have to be very creative when we can meet with them. So I typically meet with the student during that 20-minute period. And then during the next few periods, I usually do Zoom calls with students who are home, if they're awake, because it's usually pretty early. So that's becoming a little challenging. Then sometimes students will have a class where it is okay for them to come see me, depending on what class it is, or if it's a gym class. Sometimes the teachers will will share the block for a little bit. But a lot of it is Zoom time when the kids are in school. And then when the bell rings, we have the PM learning blocks. I usually meet with students right at 12 o'clock. And then another student, and then usually a Zoom call, depending on what's happening. And then on Wednesday, the students are in school all day. So I typically meet with a student during that lunch block. There's a little lunch block in between. So I'll meet with the student then. And then I have like my PLC during the morning. And then at the end of the school day, there's office hours, and I'll meet with the student then. So it's becoming, my caseload is increasing now that students have been in school for several months and they really do have more needs and they need more support. So it's getting tricky, but my model is a consultation model. So the way it works is I typically meet with students for 6 to 8 visits, and then we reevaluate and determine if we can go like every other week or maybe once a month. So that way I can always be taking students. So my caseload will never be full. I'll never be in a position where I say, oh, I can't take any more students, because it will be revolving. And I really want to, I'm committed to helping students realize the importance of, well, the effectiveness of joining groups, because they can really, really have a great dynamic experience if they're in a group. And also it's a way for me to serve a lot of students at the same time. So it's very effective for planning. So I guess that would be typical. And the other thing I did want to mention that we just started last week, the guidance counselors are, and a few other student teachers as well, are offering an ASC. So for every day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, for 2 blocks, students who are invited to come in can come in and work in the upper library on their academics. And our role there is really to provide encouragement and to kind of check in with them as a trusted adult. And we started it last week. This is the 2nd week, and we've had quite a few students coming in. I proctor it once on Mondays, and yesterday there were about 5 students there when I was there, and they worked the whole time. The whole time they were working, and they really appreciated it. And these are days that they would be home. So they're coming in to do work and then go home. So we'll be offering that for the rest of the year as well.
That's really great. Thank
Yeah.
you so much. Yeah, it's a good insight to see, you know, the services that you are providing to the students. So it's comforting to know that it's happening.
I'd like to add like one more thing, if I may. So what I'm really like focusing on is providing support, but also helping students develop skills. So it's a combination of counseling, supportive counseling, and also skill development for students who may have skills that are lagging or lacking, or sometimes they just want to fine tune them. You know, some students really are high functioning, but they really want to refine, or they want to really dig a little deeper. So it's not always students who are struggling in a visible way. It may be something more nuanced or subtle, and they really want some support in that area.
Wonderful. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Any other questions for Suzanne or Andrew? Yes, Colleen.
Two questions, one for each of you. So Suzanne, thank you so much for your really seem to be sort of hitting all of the students, as many as you can, identifying, you know, students who normally wouldn't have come to, you know, look for services. Like you said, the non-visible sort of needs that arise. But the programs that you mentioned in the beginning, and I read about them in an email from Amy, and I was so excited to see that these are happening. So I'm sure it was in the email, but I just wanted to ask when those are taking place. Are they in the PM learning blocks?
No, so that's a great question. They are, so the group that, one of my groups is on a Tuesday afternoon at 1 o'clock. They're all different.
Okay.
And they're all on Zoom, but they're yeah, so they typically would be PM learning blocks. I think Mr. Branco has his lunch group is during lunch period on Wednesday. But they'll be all different, but it will definitely be PM learning blocks. It's not during the school day.
They are, okay.
So we will not.
With our new sort of DESI guidance that the high schoolers are absorbing this week, either well or not so well, but does this count, does this engagement count as a PM learning block for them?
Well, my interpretation is yes, because when I read it, it says support, the receiving support.
Yep.
So I actually do want to confirm that with Ms. McLeod, but my understanding is that it would count for that. I don't know if Doug knows the answer to that. I can find out and get back to you, but I would think it would count.
Seems like it should, but I know that the kids are, that's probably another conversation for us to have, but they're maybe a little confused around what exactly that looks like, right?
Yes.
So if this is something that they can reach out for and then feel that is, a PM learning block check mark, basically. Not that they would do it for that reason, but that this also is a way that they can reach out for support.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And Andrew.
Sorry, Colleen.
Yep.
Oh, I just didn't know. Doug, did you want to speak to that, just in terms of time counting around the live piece? I think it's really more like Suzanne said about live check-in times with students for a specific content area.
Yeah, I think in regard to the Department of Ed, I think it would count, right? And I think that the other question would be is how are we accounting for other students during that time as well? And so I think that time would absolutely count, Suzanne. So I agree with you. Yeah, I think you're spot on.
Andrew, I think my comment was more just to give sort of just accolades to the eye care program that you're running with all the students. Just feedback from my own student. It's one of his favorite blocks, really. And I think as obviously what it provides that you talked about, it also gives them sort of a break in their sort of academic instruction and sort of dips into taking a breather and stepping back and maybe helping with their ability to be able to manage, even just the block before and after and all of it together. And it was just so wonderful to hear my students' feedback from that. He wouldn't have normally reached out for services, but it's been extremely positive. And I can imagine that all students are feeling the same way. And you're able to, like you said, you're able to really identify and reach out to students that you normally would not have been able to. So kudos to you and your team.
Thank you so much for the feedback, Colleen. That's fantastic. That's exactly what, we want to hear. And it's kind of what we have heard, that it's been great. And I do look at it, and I know we all do, as a break, for the kids for the most part. It's not a heavy lifting academic demand class. It should be seen more as a bit of a mood regulation break, a time where they can just relax a little bit. I know personally, we all kind of run it a little bit differently, whether it's Adam or me or one of the other counselors, but I kind of focus a lot of mine on self-reflection. So we kind of really do different activities, watch videos, read different passages, and kind of foster self-reflection. And yeah, so far the kids have really enjoyed it, which has been great.
It's great. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Colleen. Susie, did you have your hand up? No? Oh, sorry, Tom, yes.
No problem. Thank you. I just wanted to add my voice just for appreciation and thanks to you guys and your team that, these extraordinary times and, your work is challenging enough on a regular day and a regular week. And now that we all know that such a thing will never exist again, the type of energy and creativity and professionalism that you and your fellow counselors are putting into this work is impressive and monumental, and I just want to recognize that and say thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. Any other questions? Yes, Greg.
Thank you, Amy. Just echoing my colleagues' comments, mental health supports for our students are important, really central in good times, but they're absolutely essential now over the last year. And I think the comments tonight, I hope, reflect to you that you have an administration and a school committee who really truly understand how important the work you're doing is to the success of our students and their families. So I just want to add my thanks too. But I also had a question. As we're coming up on a year dealing with this pandemic, what we've learned is that the pandemic has unearthed and laid bare many inequities in our system, in our social system, in our educational system. And among those is that both health inequities and mental health inequities hit harder our more vulnerable students. And I'm thinking particularly about students with disabilities, students living in poverty, students of color, and students that are struggling with language, maybe speaking English as a second language. Are we working to ensure that our mental health services are identifying those particularly vulnerable populations and making special efforts to connect with them and get them connected to the services they need?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. And that is really the biggest challenge we've seen this year, is that those groups that you talked about, single parent families, low income families, English as a second language families, things like that, individuals with disabilities, other challenges. Those have been the hardest kids, the hardest families to support, the hardest kids to support during all of this, because of, for a million different reasons. So absolutely, I would say that I've just been, really impressed at how all of the teachers and administration at Galvin, everyone that I've spoken to has really been doing everything they possibly can to bend over backwards to work with all students and, meet families where they are, and really find out exactly what they need for support, whether it comes to, increased meetings or, providing, Chromebooks or things like that, or offering extra days of the week, different grading modifications, things like that. But that is the absolute biggest challenge right now.
And I can add that I think more than ever, we have to view our students who are struggling through the lens of compassion and curiosity more than ever. And at the high school, we have an intervention team that meets every other week, where we have an opportunity to bring forth student names that we're concerned about. And so sometimes it is attendance, what's going on with attendance. Sometimes it's failing grades. Teachers make referrals, administrators make referrals. So it's definitely built-in time. And then sometimes things come up and we really can't wait for that every 2 weeks or every other week. And so we will get together informally as needed, as things are happening in real time, to be able to reach out to students. So for example, students are referred to me, but I don't wait for 2 weeks to reach out to somebody if it's something that really needs to be addressed sooner than later. We also touch base with our ELL teacher and check in with those students as well to make sure that they're getting the support they need. I stop by her room on a regular basis and just really try to make sure that we stay as connected as possible. And teachers are encouraged to make referrals to us as needed.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really helpful. And again, I really appreciate the work you're doing. And just one parting comment. I some of these impacts, of course, are going to continue to, through this year and next year. And as we, as a school committee, with the superintendent and his leadership team, start to develop a budget, I think it's important that we, document the scope and scale of the work that you're doing. Because we're going to have to make a case to the community for the resources that we're going to need to support mental health services going forward. And that's, I think, we're going to have to articulate to the community how vital this is to the success of our students and our system as a whole. So that's it. Thanks again.
Thank you, Greg. Yes, Mike.
Thanks, Greg.
Andrew and Suzanne, I had a question about, we're 10 months into this. It's hard to believe we're 10 months into this. And I always try to look, are there any silver linings from what we've gone through the last 10 months? And as you look back retrospectively and forward, what have you learned and how will that change the way you perform these support services going forward that perhaps 10 months ago you might have said this will never work, and you found out that there are ways of doing this that aren't necessarily all in person? I'm sort of curious what your thoughts are of how it will change your perspective and how you will do your jobs in the future.
Well, I can quickly say that, I know I've talked a little bit about the iCare class model, and, I certainly can't take credit for it. It was, Galvin's administration that pitched it at first to us. And realistically, when it was first discussed, we were hesitant. We were nervous about it, right? We were worried about being bogged down in the classroom because, as counselors, we're usually on our feet, moving around on the go, supporting students. And if it was one thing that I'd learned was that, pushing into the students' classrooms more, potentially had a preventative effect, and establishing that relationship with, a large group of kids that we wouldn't potentially have been exposed to at a different time was really setting up the stage for us to do the work in the moments when kids were struggling. So much so, Adam and I have talked a little bit about trying to continue some sort of iCare class model moving forward, whenever we return back to full-time, full-time school, because we've really just been really happy with how it's worked.
I think the silver lining for me is the realization that when we work with students who experience school refusal or school avoidance, in the future, I feel so much more equipped now to stay connected with them. That was always very, very difficult to keep connected with students who were not coming to school. And I feel now, knowing that, yes, we can connect over Zoom. I've met with students this year that I've never met with them in person. We meet every week on Zoom. Well, actually, I've met with one person who I hadn't met with, but I actually met with him yesterday for the first time, which was incredible. But I think that that's definitely a silver lining, that it's almost like a way of connecting with students who really do have a difficult time coming to school. And I think that will be helpful. Maybe in the future too, there'll be more streamlining of classes for students who can't come to school for whatever reason, as opposed to them just like getting notes and trying to teach the information to themselves while they're out. I just think it kind of opens up a lot more possibilities that we have not explored in the past.
Great. Well, thank you both for your responses and for all you do. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Well, again, thank you so much again for all your hard work. We're a very lucky community to have such great people helping our students socially, emotionally, academically, and families as well. So thank you very much.
So Suzanne and Andrew, thank you so much. I think I can't thank you enough for your work and also for being here this evening to share a little of what you do. I think one of the things that I think makes the two of you so exceptional in your roles as counselors, and one of the things that I think that is unique to the work that's happening this year, is that there's time and opportunity for students to seek out a counselor, but there's also this other part of this reciprocal work where if students aren't coming to you, the counselors, they're coming to the students, right? And that's something that has, I think, significantly changed this year, and I think has made, I think the impact that you're having even more exceptional and positive than it has been in the past. So I can't thank you enough. So next up on the superintendent's agenda is capital projects with Bob Shiroli. Bob, I could turn it over to you at this point.
Thanks, Doug. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. Over the last few weeks, we've met with the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee, and we've reviewed the capital projects. So I guess I'll go through line by line. I know WCAT, I sent the presentation over to them, or the projects themselves. There we go. I know that might be hard for you guys to see, but I'll go through them, and I'll stop for a second after each explanation. And if you guys have questions, great. And if not, I'll just go line by line. So first, we have a hot water heater replacement at the Dolbear. This was on last year's capital project, and this was approved, but due to COVID and the financial impacts on the town, the capital projects were split into 2 phases, and this was put on phase 2. Unfortunately, most of phase 2 did not happen in December as planned, again, due to financial impacts. So, you know, this hot water heater at the Dolbear is the largest hot water heater that is used throughout the entire school, and it's nearing the end of its life. The hot water heater is starting to show signs confirmed by the town's plumber that it needs to be replaced. So again, this was approved last year, and I don't see why it wouldn't be again this year. All right, if no questions, we'll move on to number 2. So this is to repave the asphalt driveway around the horseshoe around the back at the Doyle Early Education Center. Last summer, Joe Conway and the DPW were gracious enough to help us add 10 new parking spaces at the Doyle. We were pretty limited over there for staff, so this helped out tremendously. So this is kind of phase 2, so paving around the backside of the school will help us with drop off and pick up for students. The asphalt's currently crumbling, so you know, it's in dire need of being refinished. So that, I don't have a price on that, but that will be in our discussions with the DPW and FinCom when we get there, probably in a couple weeks. So that brings me to the third item. This is the excuse me, the biggest ticket item we have, and it's for IT at the Galvin. It's for new projectors, so it's for $200,014. So there would be 92 projectors throughout classrooms. There would be a large projector in the auditorium, and then also HDMI runs and cabling for these new projectors. So I guess I could touch base a little bit on this. Jeff Weiner met with our Finance Facilities Subcommittee last week and discussed this. There was a lot of questions around it. Again, it's a big ticket item. But Jeff has an IT, they have a plan for about every 5 years to replace technology equipment. And the cost to repair a new projector is very similar, if not the same, as to replace brand new. So, you know, this is his plan in his revolving IT equipment. I don't know if there's any questions on that. Okay. Line item number 4 is again at the Doyle. It's to remove an old boiler there. It's a large cast iron boiler. There used to be 2 there. One was removed when the new boilers were installed a few years back, but this one was left. I don't know why, but you know, it has asbestos on it. Again, it's contained asbestos, so it's not harmful or hazardous right now. But again, I would just like to get it out of there. There's limited space and storage over there, and getting this out of there would really help to store some of our cleaning supplies, and again, any asbestos in old equipment that contains asbestos, we'd like to get out of the schools. Line item number 5 is a new playground at the Woodville. So again, last year we did Greenwood, and FinCom had said that they would like to do a new playground every year around town if they can. So this year we're trying to put Woodville on. We did just put $11,000 in. The DPW put $11,000 of new plating in, which is the platforms that students walk on, because the plating and platforms were becoming a little dangerous. So they did just replace those. So you know, this will definitely be a conversation whether it's going to be replaced or not. If FinCom decides not to move forward with this playground, we do have other playgrounds, either the Dolbear kindergarten one that's later on this list, or Walton, that we could replace and move up to the tier 1. So we do have that kind of as a backup plan. All right, moving on. At the Galvin, we have a snow removal equipment machine. It's a sidewalk machine that we would like to purchase. Currently, the Galvin really has the biggest area and space that needs to be cleaned during when there's snowfall. So this is the same machine that the DPW facility department received last capital, and I've been in discussions with them, seeing if they like it. Just going through the whole process, and they're happy with it. So, excuse me. So this is something that we really need over the Galvin, because what we have right now is just insufficient for clearing the sidewalks with the amount that we have and the time that we have to get the schools ready for students and staff. All right. Next is this was approved last year as well. It's district wide. It's called Novatime Time and Attendance. This is again what the DPW uses for their hourly workforce to badge in and badge out each day. So one of the reasons that we're looking to do this is to streamline the payroll process. Right now, many of our hourly employees submit paper time cards, as you will, and we have to go through them. It usually takes a couple days process. Excuse me. Usually takes a couple days to process payroll this way. So adding this attendance software will really streamline the process. We are in talks with the unions. We sent some letters out to them, and we're just waiting to hear back to discuss on any questions they may have. Switching over from paper payroll to a badging system. All right. So moving on, this again is district-wide HVAC recommissioning. So we had this on capital for last year, and discussing with FinCom, they had said that they believe that this is something that should fall in the local budget. I don't necessarily disagree with them, but again, there needs to be the funds appropriated there for us to do so. So this is something that I truly believe is huge in preventative maintenance in buildings. Every building should really every 7-8 years have their HVAC system recommissioned. And if we were to do this, we would just have it on a rotating basis. So this would really stay on capital year over year. So this again, with COVID being so prevalent in HVAC and air quality being at the forefront of a lot of this transmission of this disease, I really see in the industry sees that going forward, this is going to be huge in how we're going to be able to protect and make our schools and buildings safe. So really, doing this every 7-8 years will allow us to review and give buildings proper attention, allowing equipment to be calibrated for the optimal performance. If there's any questions there. All right, moving on. The Greenwood, we have a split system. This was, I believe this was put on last year's as well, but I don't think it was approved. So we have a split system for the main office, principal's office, and conference room. This would allow air conditioning in these 3 areas. Currently, there's one window air conditioning unit in the main office, but in the summers, we also need some air conditioning space to store our Chromebooks. So this would help there. And then lastly, on tier 1 is district-wide, is to update all the water bubblers with the autofill sensors. So with COVID around as well, we've blocked off the water fountains throughout the school, but we've left the autofill water bubblers. So we'd really like to update these. We had a $5,000 grant that the DPW was able to get us. With the lead times and everything, we placed an order about 5 months ago. We're still waiting for the water bubblers to come in. That's how in demand these things are, and back ordered. So, but this is kind of phase 2, and it would allow us to have these autofill water bubblers in every school throughout the district. So I don't know if there's any questions on any of those for tier 1.
Yep, Mike.
So, and if we're going to cover this later, just stop me, Bob. It may be more a question for Doug. These are all important things to do, but I kind of generally categorize them as infrastructure things that aren't necessarily improving the learning experience, but they're necessary things so that you can have a learning experience. So one of my questions is, we're going through our 10th month of having to adapt to remote learning, hybrid, and all those things. Is there any thoughts to creating some sort of a capital list, and it may be a very large number, that creates a better learning experience for the kids, bigger screens for remote, things of that sort, that will truly help the educational experience? These are all very necessary, don't get me wrong at all. You know, we talked about development, you know, it'll likely be a very large price tag, but until we know what we want to do, it's probably hard to get the money to do it, perhaps.
So what I think what you're describing would be something that we would cover through the traditional budget process. So the capital, so the town votes on capital. So as part of that process, we prioritize and bring our items to a capital meeting. So this is kind of a standard part of our calendar. So when it comes to facilities and infrastructure, this is kind of a standard part of what Bob needs to do before he then, in school committee, will make a motion and vote on this to approve. And this will go, Bob will carry this to a meeting with DPW and town leaders to kind of plead our case in regard to these are our priorities and this is why, right? And so there's a fixed amount of money that the town dedicates annually to capital. So the answer to your question in regard to teaching and learning will be addressed, you know, items in COVID, any innovative changes, anything with technology, that will all come in the budget narrative that we create and we present to school committee, that Christine and I will present to school committee to be accepted. Right? And so, but that is a separate standalone on the calendar for capital.
Okay, thank you.
You're certainly welcome.
Thanks for explaining that, Doug. So there's 3 tiers that we typically have in Mike. Tier 1, and tier 1 is our priorities, and then kind of tier 2 is what we would like to get done, and tier 3 is kind of down the road. So that was all of tier 1 that I kind of just went through. Tier 2, we have spare projectors for IT and the cost of $15,225. So I know Jeff, again, like I said, he has a plan to replace projectors on a 5-year schedule, but these spare projectors are in the event that projectors go down throughout the year and break, that they have to replace. So I know right now Jeff tries to purchase a set amount each year for when they break, and if they do break each year, and when he does replace them, if he runs out, then he has to find some money out of his local budget to purchase new projectors. At the high school, I spoke with Brendan Kent. We want to get a new updated school board and cage for one of the school boards in the field house against the back wall. It's pretty old, and it's when bulbs go out, it's pretty hard to get up there to replace them. So this would be a digital school board similar to the one we just did at the Woodville last summer. Over the Doyle, we have some asbestos tile. Again, not hazardous as it's contained right now. It's the mastic. That's in the main office, nurse's office, principal's office, and the hallway. We would like to replace. And I believe if we replace this tile, that would be the remaining asbestos in that school. So that's something, again, we would like to get done. And then the Woodville, we would like to refinish the gym floor, strip it down to bare wood, repaint new lines and seal it. We just did that at the Dolbear this past summer, so that's something that we would like to get done at the Woodville. So moving on to tier 3, we have 2 playgrounds where we would like to install rubber surface, both at the Doyle and the Dolbear. Currently there's playground wood chips there, but installing rubber surface would allow a little more ADA accessibility for children in need. The wood chips, they are considered ADA acceptable, but they're still very hard to navigate for someone in a wheelchair or someone on crutches. So, you know, the rubber playground surface, although expensive, it definitely, you know, helps those with that need. At the Dolbear, we have 2 additional badge readers that we would like to install, one at the CAF entrance and the third door entrance. It's the third door all the way to the left at the front. It does not have a badge reader at the current moment. So that's something we want to put on the pipeline. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, we have the new playground at the Walton, and then new kindergarten playground at the Dolbear that are needed. So those 3 tiers, that kind of concludes our capital plan and capital list for this year. And if you guys have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Bob. Any other questions for Bob? Oh yes, Susie, thank you.
I wasn't going to ask a question, Bob. I was just going to give a little bit more color to the conversations that we had at the subcommittee meeting, particularly around the IT investment, the big replacing all of the Galvin projectors. I think one of the things to keep in mind is, and Bob, you said this, right? You're trying to keep kind of a cycle of purchasing new projectors before they break, because if they break, then we're having to fund those out of kind of the local budget, versus when you kind of buy them in bulk from a planning perspective, they can be included as a capital investment. So that was kind of one important point that I think came out of that discussion. We know that they're at kind of the ones at the Galvin are at the shelf life that you would kind of expect that they're going to start to break if they haven't already started to break. And just a reminder that when you think about the fact that you're replacing all of the projectors at the Galvin, next year they're going to need to replace projectors, you know, potentially at 1 or 2 of the elementary schools, and that's kind of the way that the cycle works. And so it's just that, you know, Galvin is up and ready, and we need to kind of make that investment to make sure that we're not in a situation where those projectors start breaking and then we can't get them because we didn't have the money, you know, budgeted, or we haven't ordered them. I mean, this is really getting out in front of that. So we did have a decent amount of conversation about that particular line item at the subcommittee meeting that I thought was worth sharing in this forum, so that people realize that there was some discussion about it. So it's not a question, just a statement.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Susie.
Any other questions for Bob? Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion?
Oh, we do. Kind of on the fly here. Move that the school committee approve the recommendation for capital projects to be shared with the capital planning committee as part of the FY21 budgeting process as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Thank you. Roll call vote.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Ms. Baer?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Ms. Guida?
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau?
Yes?
Dr. Burns?
Yes.
Mr. Liakos?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I would like to give just a very quick update and summary on the SEAM annual report that was sent out to the committee earlier. So the SEAM Collaborative, we are a member of SEAM Collaborative. There are 12 districts that are member districts of SEAM Collaborative, and the superintendents of those districts, of which I am one, serve as the board for SEAM Collaborative. So they submit, so we essentially are like their school committee. And so they submit to us an annual report on kind of the programs that they run. It includes an annual budget and an audit as part of their annual work. And so we, the districts that are part of SEAM are Winchester, Linfield, Woburn, Stoneham, Wilmington, Reading, Melrose, North Reading, Wakefield, Saugus, and we've added North Andover this year, which is a positive. So a collaborative, just to kind of, I know that you all know this, but the reason why districts create collaboratives or access collaboratives, it is to create ways to support low incident special education needs in districts. So for example, if we had a student that had a particular need, and we didn't have the ability to provide that support and service in district, we would or we may need to send that student out of the district. When you collaborate or when you join together with other districts to create a collaborative that might have a similar need, you can create small kind of programming, or what we like to say, programming on scale, through the collaborative, right? And so the collaborative has really been terrific for us. It has saved us in regard to budget planning, but most importantly, it has created an opportunity for kids to stay close to home and get the services that they need in the sites that are managed by SEAM Collaborative. So SEAM Collaborative is essentially another school district that our students attend, that we send our students to. So there are 330 students that attend SEAM Collaborative. There are 4 towns and 5 sites within those 4 towns where they house their programs. The annual budget for SEAM Collaborative is about $32 million. And so it's really, again, been a tremendous resource for us and for our students and families. You know, we've been able to create positions working with SEAM. I don't know if you remember, but when we opened Post Academy, we didn't have a budget or a position in our budget to have a recreational coordinator position. And we were able to get that position and create it collaboratively with Reading and have that position work out of SEAM Collaborative. We also partnered with them a few years ago now on the Radar grant, but Kara just had the representative from that grant and that we've used, you know, to our tremendous benefit. Kara, I don't know if you want to describe a little bit of what that work looked like.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So one of the services is all of the member districts have collaborated and worked to fund an inclusion consultant position. And the way that position worked prior to COVID was each district created certain goals that they wanted to target with the inclusion consultant for the year. And Wakefield, it started with Doug, and then when I transitioned in, I took it and ran with it in terms of targeting early childhood work in K-1-2 with the inclusion consultant. We've since expanded the work, and this year the consultant is working a lot with our curriculum coordinators and providing professional development by way of PLCs or consultation with the coordinators on inclusive practices and universal design for learning and different strategies that can be incorporated within remote synchronous teaching as well as in person. So she's really been a huge asset. And this year, we used to be so restricted with our time with her, but now I think everyone's schedules are just a little bit more flexible. So we've even, I don't want to say we've taken advantage of that, but we reach out to her a lot to join. She was just on a meeting I had this morning with our curriculum coordinators, just consulting and troubleshooting with us. So it's been a great example of one of the resources from SEAM. If there's anything more specific you want me to speak to, I'm happy to.
I think that covers it. I don't know if anyone else might have a question for Kara or for me based on the information that we've shared. Susie?
Doug, how many kids do we have kind of in that collaborative?
I don't have our exact number of students that are participating. I want to say, you know what? Let me check and I'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
And so, because I think the number has just dropped off tremendously. And so I think our number was higher last year, but I don't want to.
Yeah, I feel like some kids aged out maybe last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
That our numbers went down because of that. Is it in somewhere in the document, or do they not outline kind of community by community?
They do not outline generally so that you can't identify students to protect their privacy, right?
Got it.
And so, but I can absolutely provide that information to you at our next meeting, Susie.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect, thanks.
Doug,
So-
how do they determine the allocation of budget, who pays what amongst the, looks like 11 towns, but.
Yeah, so all of the towns pay the same amount,
Oh, okay.
right? And then based on the services that you access or that you provide or that you need, you then pay an additional amount for tuition. So the other thing that's included in this document is a side-by-side tuition comparison. So if you were to send a student to another out-of-district placement, this is what you would pay, but going to SEAM, this is what you do pay. And so if, for example, you know, there are other districts that have reached out and have accessed services that are offered through SEAM, they pay full tuition. Whereas we, because we're a kind of a foundation member, our tuition is discounted by about 35%. Right.
Thank you.
So, is about 35%, correct, Kara?
I think so. I know there's a member rate and a non-member rate,
Yep.
and you know, I just don't have all of the. I know the front-loaded membership rate that you paid at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
I just have the numbers in front of me. But I was just going to add to the point around. So there's the placement piece, but then there's also the different ways that the collaborative can serve our students through contracted services as well. And so that's just an important piece to mention too. And I think, you know, Doug's work with SEAM Collaborative, my work with them, I know Lynn has worked with SEAM Collaborative as well. And I just think they're really just great partners for us, and they'll think outside of the box, and you know, they've got some great people as part of it. So
Thank you. Their director is Kathy Lawson. She is just exceptional, right? Just exceptional, and kind of thinks in an innovative way outside of the box to, you know, if we call her and say, you know, we're having a challenge we need to try to create support for, she is very much a partner right in lockstep with creating solutions, right? And that includes, you know, kind of expanding a testing window for a student if they need to go to a 45-day placement, to have, you know, to extend testing or to collect more information, to learn about what they may need. So if we have more questions than we do data or information, they're a partner there for us as well. They've been great. They've just been fantastic.
Are there any campuses in Wakefield, or what towns are there?
There are. So we have one in Wakefield, one in Stoneham, one in North Reading, and two in Melrose.
Okay.
In fact, they call their Melrose site Hurd School.
I saw that, yeah.
And in Melrose.
Yeah.
The Hurd School in Melrose. And so, because they were at the Hurd School here in Wakefield. And then when they moved, because they loved, everyone loved the name and all that went on there so much, they continued with the name.
Ripley, I think it's at Ripley now?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
but yeah, so that's a quick update there. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer. If not, I will try to move on in the agenda.
Yep.
Thank you. Brendan can't be with us this evening, and so I'm going to have him join us in our next meeting, and I will give a very quick summary as to where we are with athletics. So the good news with athletics is that the mitigation strategies that we're using seem to be working reasonably well. We have had some kind of instances where students have ended up testing positive, but we don't have evidence to say that they've ended up testing positive because the virus has been transmitted during a contest. But as a precautionary measure, of course, we handle close contacts with athletics like we would in the classroom. In fact, I think we're going kind of the extra step and being even more cautious. This past week, ahead of our school committee meeting this evening, we had to quarantine 3 teams. So we had a freshman girls basketball team, we had JV hockey for boys, and then the girls hockey team as well. And so the good news is that some of those groups are coming out of quarantine and are coming back online, which is positive, knock wood. We have had questions on some of our community Zoom calls with parents. Some parents have asked, have we considered not having athletics? Or is it a risk to have athletics because it might transmit the virus? And really everything that kids are doing now is a risk, is the short of it. One of the challenges for us is where we're seeing mitigation strategies work and where we're seeing kids practice and we're seeing kids play and the benefit that provides for them, right? For that to be part of the educational process, we feel like is a benefit. And at this point, based on the information that we have and the data that we have, we are going to continue in our schedules for as long as we can do it safely. But with the exception of that, that's really all I have to report at this point around athletics. And so in our next meeting, there'll be more information about what we think might be our fall 2 schedule. So there's a meeting with superintendents, Middlesex League superintendents on Friday. There's also a meeting for athletic directors, so there'll be more information on fall 2. And I'll have Brendan come and give us an update in terms of where we are.
Thank you, Doug.
That's it. Thank you.
Does anybody have Susie? Yep. Susie, sorry.
So Doug, just for clarity's sake, let's just say if next Monday we had to go remote because the quarantine numbers, for whatever reason, we have to go remote because quarantine numbers are high or the case numbers are high or what have you. That does mean that sports stops until we go back into hybrid. Is that true or is that not true?
So we've seen districts handle it both ways. So other districts in the Middlesex League have said that one is tied to the other. We have not kind of attached the two. And so, which I think is really, 10 of the 12 districts have not tied one to the other, right?
Okay.
And I think, we want to try to keep kids as active as we can as long as we can do it safely, right? And the issues why we would scale back in school are different than why we would scale back in athletics, right? So we would scale back in school if we could not contact trace in the building, right? Mm-hmm. And so if those students are athletes, then we would absolutely either stop that sport or, we would respond accordingly, but it would be strategic and on scale, right? And so I don't know if I'm being clear with my answer, Susie.
No, you are. I guess what I'm remembering, and I may not be remembering it correctly, is I thought that in the fall, that the high school had to go remote, and at the same time, sports were stopped. But the more, as I'm even saying that out loud, I'm thinking that is not the case. There were a couple of particular sports that had to be stopped because there were kids on that team that needed to be quarantined.
Correct.
Okay. Perfect.
Correct.
And I wasn't sure if it was an MIAA rule that if you weren't in school that you couldn't play sports, but it sounds like that is not the case at all, and we have not made any kind of statement about tying those two things together.
Correct. You might be thinking of when we were developing reopening plans, one of the questions about returning to a hybrid schedule, one of the questions was, well, if we can't have students back in school, why would we have them participating in person for sports? And so I think that's how the conversation started.
I think you're right. And I think Jeff Riley maybe had made some comments about that at early on. Yep. Okay. yeah, that helps a lot, and it's good to know just kind of where your head's at or how we're thinking about it at the moment.
Yeah, I one of the things that I feel like we can't report enough is that we will scale back wherever we need to at whatever level, and we will do it kind of vertically, meaning high school, middle school, elementary, right? We'll scale back, right, to keep students safe and to understand what contact tracing looks like. And the other reason we would scale back is if through quarantine and isolation or positive cases of our faculty and staff, it affected staffing and it precluded us from opening buildings safely. So, but other than that, we're prepared to scale back a classroom, scale back a school, scale back a level.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarity.
Mike had a question.
Michael?
Yeah, so this is more of a shout out to WCAT. Having a child who plays hockey, we all want to be there. Just like you want to be at the basketball games, we all want to be there.
Yeah.
And it's I've had a few parents that I've talked to about it. I said, I feel your pain directly. I get it. We all want to be there, but we obviously want the kids to be safe. But I have to say, WCAT's done a very good job. At least I've seen it from the ice hockey program, being able to telecast things in a pretty good way, I would say, all in all. And what they also did, the boys team had an injury last week. And kudos to them. They turned the camera off the injured player immediately. So whoever did that did a wonderful job of being sensitive to, obviously there's no parents there and, kind of minimizing the anxiety level if there wasn't enough already. But WCAT's done a very good job so far.
I couldn't agree more. That WCAT, like teachers and the rest of us, has adapted in ways, and they're doing things in their work that they never imagined a month ago. Never mind a year ago, right? And so, they figure it out and they do it, and they don't. They're really been an exceptional part of what we're doing.
I also just want to add with the WCAT and the live stream games that they're doing, I do think they're looking for volunteers. So if anybody is available, please reach out if you have an interest in doing that. I think it would be greatly appreciated. So kudos to WCAT as well. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, no, thank you.
That's it for me in regard to my agenda. I would just like to say again, I feel like I can't say this enough. I'd like to thank students and families for their ongoing support, for us administrators, but especially for our teachers and our faculty and staff. Faculty and staff are coming in every day and really doing the best they can to teach and to create lessons to meet the needs of kids. And they've just been so exceptional. So thank you to everybody, and it's a pleasure to be back and to see everybody.
Thank you, Doug. Moving on with the agenda, subcommittee reports for finance and facilities. We did meet last Thursday, and we did review the capital request list for fiscal year 22, as well as updates from Doug and Christine about the budget schedule for moving on. So that's it for finance. Labor and personnel, Tom?
In fact, we have not met since our last report, but we will be meeting next week, so I'll have a report at the next meeting. Nothing to report tonight.
Thank you, Tom. Student services, Darcy?
Yes, our meeting is next Wednesday, so we'll have something to report at the next meeting. We're going to be reviewing the outcome of the school leadership teams reviewing the survey data, and then continue to talk about short-term, long-term goals based on the surveys that were provided.
Thank you. Policy and communications, Colleen?
Thank you, Amy. Yep, we are meeting a week from Friday, the 22nd. Had a little bit of a break there. Amy, we edited and updated our operating protocols during our Saturday retreat with Dorothy Presser. So I'm just wondering if we will see those so that we can review and accept them to then bring forward.
Yes.
I think that was the if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be through your subcommittee, that you were going to take them and maybe revise them and then present?
Yeah, if you have the updates, I didn't know if whoever had taken the updates on that can send that to me, and then I'll bring it forth to the
Okay.
subcommittee.
I think it would be Judy, but I also took notes as well, so.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Future dates and agenda items. Our next school committee meeting will be Tuesday, January 26th at 7:30. School committee comments. Sorry, Tom?
Yep, I'm sorry, before you change topics, Amy, I'd like to request that we either at the next meeting, if possible, or the meeting after, if we could put on the agenda to revisit the citizen concerns and the actually student youth council recommendations regarding the high school mascot. I know that we had sort of put that aside back in the fall for understandable reasons with COVID and all negotiations and other things that were taking place that I think we all believed really took a precedent and needing to be discussed first. But I think now we're at a place where things may be leveling off a little bit. That we probably don't want too much more time to pass without us at least considering something that is expected within the community, especially given that the youth council worked so hard in preparing the presentation that they made to us. So when you're scheduling agenda items for the next couple of meetings, if you could consider putting that on one of the agendas, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Tom. So the next meeting is Tuesday, January 26th, 2021. Do we have a motion? Oh, sorry, Greg, for school committee comments.
Oh, sure. Thanks, Amy. So I'll preface this with a soapbox warning. But I was rereading the nice note we got from Jason Pavey, who is the 5 to 12 social studies coordinator for the Wakefield Public Schools. He sent us an update on the efforts of his team and the teachers in the Wakefield Public Schools to fulfill what I think is the admirable goals of the 2018 civic engagement, civic education legislation that the legislature passed and the governor signed. And he cited some of the language, and I'll read it: to promote student abilities related to the analysis of complex issues, consideration of different perspectives, logical reasoning with supportive evidence, engagement in civil discourse, and understand the connections between federal, state, and local policies. And Jason went on to say, now more than ever, it seems our students need to learn how to engage in civil discourse and understand how to be an active citizen who seeks to bring about positive change. And I was thinking to myself after this past week, what an understatement that is. What we've seen over the last 4 years, culminating in the tragedy of January 6th, in my opinion, is also a profound failure of American civic education. Millions of our citizens have been manipulated by dangerous demagogues like President Trump and his enablers. And I believe many have been vulnerable because they never learned to separate truth from lies and never understood the core principles and practices of American democracy. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to applaud and encourage the work of the Wakefield Public Schools to foster better civic education so we can do our part here locally to help ensure this national nightmare does not recur. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Darcy?
Yes, I'm just looking forward to the work that we're going to do in 2021, and happy this new year.
Thank you, Darcy. Susie?
I know that Suzanne and Andrew Cedrone aren't on any longer, nor Glavia, But I wanted to say just another thanks, and if Doug, for you and Amy for putting them on the agenda and to get an update. I think it was encouraging, I guess you could say, to hear that in a time when I think we're all very, very worried about our students, that we are well poised, not only to kind of serve our students from Boston and are doing a good job at that, but are also serving our high school and middle school students who, really understand kind of what's going on around them and are trying to figure out how to kind of cope with that. And it was just great to hear kind of all of the programs that are in place, and I was really encouraged by the update, knowing that lots of kids are needing to take advantage of those, and that's not great news. But the reality is that we at least have programs in place and are proactively going after trying to identify those kids that need help, whether it be in the way that Suzanne spoke about, where they're having the meetings every 2 weeks, where they're identifying kids that are at risk, or the iCares program that is really just kind of opening the eyes to all kids at the Galvin, that there's resources that they can take advantage of that maybe they wouldn't have known about otherwise. So I really just applaud that work. And I think we all kind of have already said that, but I didn't kind of speak up at the time, and I didn't want to let that go. It was great to get those updates. So thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Tom.
Just very quickly, I couldn't agree more with what Susie said, just so if I could echo that. And kudos to Greg for making the statement that you did, and thank you for keeping us aware of being ever mindful of we are part of a larger culture. And certainly great work to Jason Pavey and his team. That's for sure. We should be aware of that as well. And Happy New Year to all.
Thank you, Tom. Colleen?
Yes, Happy New Year to everyone. Just thinking, like looking ahead, maybe too far ahead, but all that we're learning right now and dealing and moving through this, and then looking ahead towards recovery. Susie, just saying that, you talked about how we're well poised, and I feel like that will also come forth in our recovery, because I feel like that may even be more insurmountable, for us to realize all the repercussions of all that has gone on. But there's a lot of encouragement and a lot of support that I feel like we will manage it well. And that is very encouraging to see. And also to add to what Greg talked about also, and encourage the students that are participating in the civics project to reach out to your elected officials. I had a conversation with one of my sons. He thought that was preposterous, that he might reach out to find out about what school committee does, but hoping that other students may be encouraged to find out and just see exactly what civic engagement looks like, and that is something that they can actually relate to. So I would encourage our students to reach out to us through the program, and that's all.
Thank you, Colleen. Mike?
Well, it was funny when we were talking before the meeting began about March 12th was the day we shut down the schools, and so today is literally 10 months since we shut down the schools, and what a 10 months it's been. But at least I think there's a bit of a message of hope. We can finally see a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not getting as bright as fast as we'd like it to, but it is getting brighter, and we will at some point in time get over this. And we were sort of joking about 10 years down the road, we're all at a bar having a couple of drinks. Someone says, we're talking about COVID. Who was the chair of the school committee and who was the superintendent? Oh, those people. I don't know how they survived. So I can see us, however long some of us stay in the school committee administration, saying whenever we're having a bad day, we can always say, yeah, but it's not 2020-21 kind of day as well. So kudos to both of you. And obviously it's not just you, and you'd be the first to admit it, but kudos that there seems to finally be a glimmer of hope that hopefully we can all hold on to as that light gets brighter for us.
Yeah, one of the things that I've discussed with Amy and with Greg Liakos is trying to get more teachers and students into the agenda so that we're hearing and seeing where our work is going, right? Hearing and seeing where our efforts are going, you know? We're talking about Jason Pavey right now. In our next meeting, Jason will be on that agenda, you know, and Jason is really one of the finest young leaders that we have in this district. I mean, he is just exceptional, and we're fortunate to have him, and you'll see in the next meeting more to come.
Thank you, Doug. And finally, for me, I actually just want to give a shout out to the theater production of A Christmas Carol that had taken place over Christmas vacation. I did watch it. I just was blown away that it was about an hour and a half or an hour and 45-minute production with five in the ensemble, and they just kept me engaged the whole time, and I'm just really proud of the production that they pulled off and the talent that we have in Wakefield, and kudos to the production people for putting that together. It was really excellent, so thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
We do. Move that the school committee adjourn. Move that the school committee adjourn its meeting of January 12th, 2021.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Ms. Vayer?
Yes.
Mr. Markham?
Yes.
Ms. Guida?
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau?
Yes.
Dr. Burns?
Yes.
And Mr. Liakos?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes our meeting for this evening. Thank you for watching. Good night.
Good night, all.